Hey, this Sunday was Mother's Day, and we got to honor all of our moms. In the message this week, we talked about what is in your hands. Do you feel like it's insignificant, it's not enough, or it's really hard to let go? Well, with God's hands holding our hands, He is enough for us. We hope you enjoy the message.
Today we're going to be talking about what is in your hands, and your gift, I'm so excited, has to go with the message. What is in your hands? And when we were coming up with this, of course I had to go on Pinterest to get the picture, because what mom is not on Pinterest? I'm sure there are some that aren't. Just don't go there, because you'll never leave. But this picture, look what is in her hands. You know what they told me a long time ago? Don't blink. I think I blinked way too much. Now they're 19 and 17, and I am probably closer to grandparenthood than I am to the littles. But I live vicariously. I call it ministry. I hug and love on littles when I'm in preschool. And they call me Miss Heather, and they come up and we share our little bling for the girls. Like, look what we have. And we have a good time. Sorry, I won't go there. Anyway, what is in your hands? What is in your hands? I thought it was outstanding because worship service today, and I didn't even talk to Jason about it, but almost every song has to go with my message. So I don't know what you've come in here with or what's going on, but God has a word for you. If you're a mom, a dad, a single person, a kid, that covers just about everything. God has a word for you. So before we get started, I'm going to talk about things that kids put in our hands. And we're going to start from the littles, things that kids put in our hands. Probably a good month ago when the weather was trying to decide what it wanted to do, we had a great rain and all of the species that were hiding in the ground started to come out. You know what I'm talking about? Well, we were locking up on a Wednesday night, and we were some of the last pastors here. And the sailors, we had said goodbye to them, and I think Alan was getting the car or whatever, and I was standing by the door, and all of a sudden, I see in the dark, because it hadn't quite changed the light yet, this little figure come running back to the door, and I mean, it's like slightly drizzling, so I just opened the door, and Miss Livy looks at me, and she goes, she's 4 years old, mind you. She goes, Miss Heather, I got something for you. I go, what do you got for me, baby? So I just put my hands out because it's a kid. What can they put in your hands? I think I forgot. I just put my hands out, and Jess looks at me, and in, plop, a worm. And I'm like, that's awesome. Jess looks at me, and she goes, I'm sorry. I go, no, that's awesome. And it was the most beautiful, precious thing, and in that one moment, I just wanted to choose to just be there. I was like, oh, I'm a kid again. This is awesome. But things that kids put in our hands, gum, tadpoles, mud pies, coloring pages and crafts from church. I know when I'm coordinating back there, we don't hand you just one thing. We hand you like 5 things. We're like, here, they did this and this and this and this. And I still have some of those things from my babies. Barbie dolls with no heads from Hunter. So people ask me, did your son play with dolls? Yes, but it wasn't good. Poor Sierra, I think she was like, I'm going to make him be the sister I wanted. Like, he's going to play with me, we're going to play well, and then in would come in about 15 minutes later, Mom! No heads. And then, of course, dandelions from Sierra. And she would run in, little girl, and she'd even have them tied and wrapped. Mommy! I remember all that, things they put in our hands. One of my most favorite movies is Mom's Night Out. How many saw that movie? Pretty awesome. And one of the quotes in that says, the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. See, it doesn't matter who the president's going to be because really we all know who the boss is. Mom. Mom's the boss. But no matter who you are in this place today, this message is for you. In our hands, we hold our worlds, and with our hands, we bless our worlds. But the same hands that open wide, that belong to us, that hold everything that we love, may be the same hands that open wide to display our lack and our inadequacy when we're in time of need. You go, Heather, whoa, you were really funny. Why? Because some of us, we've learned to put on nice clothes and pretty faces, and we go, you know what? I really have my hands open that I need something inside, but I'm just going to walk in here and sit down. In need. In America, it's hard to be needy. Even our poor are rich in the world's eyes. But we are in need. We're in need of a God whose big hands can come under our hands and hold them up. Isaiah 41:13, I love this verse. It says, For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand. It is I who say to you, fear not, I am the one who helps you. You know, it puts a picture in my mind of when I'm with the littles back there, or when I had my kids and they were very little, and I'd be like, come here, hold mom's hand. Come on, hold my hand. And there are seasons in our life that God wants to really hold our hands. But we get to choose. We get to choose. So this morning, we're going to visit 3 completely different people to see when God takes a hold of their hands, like ours, he can turn the problems of our lives into potential. So let's take a look at what they saw in their hand. First one is what I have is insignificant. You don't see what I see, Heather. We don't have a whole lot. And what I do have, really, you might not even be able to sell that at the thrift store. I love the story of Moses, especially in Exodus 4, because Moses, he was born a Hebrew kid. He was raised in royalty, and he came back to being a Hebrew again. God saw exactly where he was, just like you and just like me. And he called him and he said, hey, you in this season of hiding and thinking that you're insignificant, I'm calling you to save my people. And Moses goes, what? What? No way. So here we enter the story. Then Moses answered, but behold, they will not believe me. Basically, you've said all these things. Or listen to my voice, for they will say, the Lord did not appear to you. The Lord said to him, what is it that's in your hand? And he said, a staff. Basically, he could have said, a stick. Now, who pays money for a stick? Maybe a nice carved one. But if somebody walked up to your door and said, hey, I picked up this stick. You want it? You're like, no, I've got 5 trees in the back. We got plenty of sticks. What is it that you have in your hand? A staff. And he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground. It became a serpent. And I love Moses' response. He ran away from it. But the Lord said to Moses, put out your hand and catch it by the tail. So he put out his hand and he caught it, and it became a staff again. Can you imagine? Some people go, that's a really good story, but I don't think it happened. It did happen. It did happen. And why did it become a staff? That they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. You want God to enter the scene of your life, then it just can't be for you. He will display his glory in your story if you let him. Insignificant things. What do we call insignificant in our life? You know, the very things that we call insignificant, God says, hey, that's important. Moses' perspective was all about what he lacked. He forgot that if God called him, he would care for him and he would equip him. Sometimes we go, God, I know you're leading me into this space, but whoa, you know why we do this? And our faith has a hard time jumping? Because we love comfortable land. I love comfortable land. When I'm done with this sermon, I'm going home after lunch and I'm putting on comfortable pants. We love our comfort, but when we live in comfortable land too much, when God starts to like move and go, hey, you're asking me to use you, all of a sudden, we don't look at it and go, there's a miracle. We do like Moses, we run away from it. And God says, what's in your hand? You see, in God's love, God shifted Moses' attention away from his anxiety about the future to write what was in front of him. Write what was in front of him. But behold, they will not believe me or listen to me, for they will say, the Lord did not appear to you. Do you know what that also sounds like? Doubt. Moses' worry caused doubt. What's amazing, if you look at Moses' past, just like I said, Moses' life was saved. He was supposed to be killed as an infant. Not only was he saved, he was put right into the Egyptian royal family. Are you kidding me? That's straight into the people who asked for your death. And then he was delivered and saved again because they wanted to kill him because he had killed a man. And all of a sudden he goes, but they will not believe me. They'll say the Lord did not appear to you. We do this all the time. Worry of the future, so you know, it annihilates today. When I get my eyes on, oh Lord, you can't do this. Not only does it annihilate today, it says, you know what, God, I forget that you're faithful. I forget that you're true. I forget that you have everything. Never undervalue what God has provided, especially if it appears insignificant. Because you know what you might be staring at? You might be staring at a miracle. You go, but Heather, you don't know my situation. You don't know that God hasn't given me these gifts. You don't know what he's asking me to do. You know what? If God asks you to do it, the miracle is in the house. I'm going to say that again. If God asks you to do it, the miracle is in the house. So what I have may not be what I want. It may be insignificant, but it may be not enough. Enough. Lord, we live in a time and an age where we have these things, and we have computers. We have it all at our fingertips. If we have to wait too long for the computer to come on or the internet to boot, we get a little upset. What do you feel like you don't have enough time? God has given you 24 hours like he's given me. Maybe you feel like you don't have enough money, enough fruit of the Spirit. Have you ever said this? I don't have enough patience for that, God. What? I don't have gentleness. Lord, I don't think I can have self-control around them. I love this next story because Jesus actually tells the story and he sees the woman's heart over her need. Mark 12, 41 through 44 says, and he sat down opposite the treasury. Now, listen to these words, are pretty powerful. And watched the people put money into the offering basket or box. Many rich people put in large sums, and a poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which made a penny. And he called his disciples to him, and he said to them, truly I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the offering box. For they contributed out of their abundance, but she out of her poverty has put in everything she had, all she had to live on. You know, at face value, we can look at this and go, okay, yeah, Heather, what are you saying? God opposes the rich? Nope. God only opposes the proud. He sees past the facade. I find it's interesting because in the commentaries that I was reading and studying, these offering baskets, this wasn't like she walked down to the front and everybody celebrated and everybody saw. These offering boxes were attached to big, huge columns in front of the temple in the view of public, and people were just bustling by. And on each column, it said where that offering was going to. Like to help the widows, to help like the improvement of the tabernacle, maybe to help the priests, but nobody was paying attention. You know what she did? Out of her, God, I don't know if you're enough. She started that journey with God before she got to the offering box. In her mind, in her heart, she went, if I don't have anything, God, I have you. And as she walked, it was resolved in her mind. Give. Have you ever given something sometimes and they loved it, whatever you gave, but in your heart you went, you know what, I think I regifted that. I'm glad they liked it because that's not how this woman gave. See, it had nothing to do with the money because it could be your time. It could be your talent. And you say, no, God, it's not enough, so I'm not even going to try. What does that say about God? See, God knows the heart. 1 Samuel, and this isn't on the screen, but 1 Samuel 16:7 says, for the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord, he looks on the heart. God doesn't oppose the rich or those that he has blessed. He opposes the proud because what does pride do? It kills the blessing. You know, I can have pride whether I'm rich or I'm in poverty. The problem is can God use his message to get in me and through me? That little widow was mentioned in the Holy Scriptures, which is the best-selling book of all time. Not because of she just was amazing, but because in her heart, I love Jesus. You know, he just busy. I'm sure people were talking to him and he just sat down. And he looked at her heart. You know what? He looks at our heart every day. I know you're busy. I know you got to get up. I know you got to get the kids ready. I know you got to get lunches made and you got to be here and you got to be there. But in all that you do, see that I am your enough. You know what typically stops us is the health issue, the financial issue. And you know what we do? And I hate this because I'm right along with you. We don't go, okay, I stop. Okay, God, you're enough. We go, why? Why did you interrupt my life? But that's the only time we get to spend with our Heavenly Father. Do you trust him? Do you trust him? When I don't have enough, it really says a lot with how much do I trust God? You know, in my own life, I know when God is testing me in the not enough. You in a season where it seems like the heavens are really quiet right now, you could be in a test. What happens when a test is given? The teacher is quiet. Are you drawing into the Lord and you're reading the scriptures, but you're like, he's not saying anything. He's just kind of waiting it out. It's a test. You know when the test for me comes in this area is when everything's going crazy and I look and I see the opportunity and it's walking my way or it has just called me and I go, God, I don't have time for this. Like, I really don't have time for this. Heather, I want you to do a small grape. I don't have time for this. I really don't. I don't have time for the nervous breakdown I really need, and I don't have time for this. Or Alan goes, can you call that lady? I don't have time. You know what I'm saying? God, I don't have time to minister to the person who's potentially going to minister to me. I tell God, I don't have enough time, Lord. When he says, I created you. I gave you all you need. Ultimately, in this test, you either believe God is enough or you don't. And the third one is, what I have is hard to let go of. Or what I have in my hand is hard to let go of. And this is the hardest one because it really parallels a story of Abraham and Isaac, but I'm going in a whole other direction. See, God places so many things in our hands, people, opportunity, but many of those things that come in our hands are precious to us, and He knows it. The things we've prayed for, a job, a career, a spouse, doors to open for us to fulfill our dreams, our callings, our visions, they're all great things. To own a house, to own a company. But what if it comes packaged as a child, when naturally you could not have one? And you pray and you pray and you pray, and God says, yep, you're going to have a kid. Let me introduce you to Hannah. 1 Samuel 1, 4-8 says, on the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah, he gave a double portion because he loved her, though the Lord had closed her womb. And her rival used to provoke her grievously, to irritate her, because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb. I'm going to back up for a minute, and I didn't cover this in first service, but it hit me. The Lord had closed her womb. For some of us, that's very difficult. Why did the Lord close her womb? Why do you think the Lord closed her womb? Because when we have limitations or limps or weaknesses, who do we draw close to? The whole Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, is about a God who wants so desperately to have a relationship with us. From putting us on a beautiful place and giving us the Garden of Eden, all the way to, this isn't working, so I'm going to send my son to die, to I'm coming back for this beautiful people that I love so much. Nothing that God puts in your life or takes out of your life is because He's just, you know what, I think I'm going to just take it. It has a reason and it has purpose. And the older I get, the more I know, as deep as the hurt goes, is as high, if I choose, God will use my testimony to reach someone else. So Hannah, her womb had been closed by the Lord. And this went on year by year. Often as she went to the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her, this other woman. Therefore, Hannah wept and she would not eat. And Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? And why do you not eat? And why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons? She was deeply distressed, and she prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on my affliction of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. How many people here, myself included, go, God, if you do this, I will glorify you in it. She wasn't making a deal with the Lord. She was pleading with the Lord because she was saying, Lord, my intentions are honorable. I don't just want it for my own comfort. I want to give birth to something that will give birth, that will give birth, that will give birth, that will be a world changer. And no razor shall touch his head. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for all along I've been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation. Then Eli answered, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition. Eli was the priest of the church. He saw this woman bitterly weeping at the altar, so much so that the word says he thought she was drunk. Her heart so desperately wanted something in her empty hands. May the God of Israel grant your petition that you have made to him. And she said, let your servant find favor in your eyes. Then the woman went away and ate, and her face was no longer sad. I love this part. They rose early in the morning and worshiped before the Lord. Then they went back to their house at Ramah, and Elkanah knew Hannah, his wife, and the Lord remembered her, and in due time, Hannah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Samuel, for she said, I have asked for him from the Lord. And she said, oh, my Lord, as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who is standing here in your presence, praying to the Lord. So she took, and she went back to the priest and said, look at me, I prayed. And she said, I prayed for this child. Therefore, I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is lent to the Lord. And guess what? Samuel worshiped there all of his days. You know what's interesting? Is that the very thing that you may not have in your hand, that you're asking from the Lord wants to know, are you willing to let it go? If I give it to you, can you give it back? And you may say, well, why in the world? Nobody gives a gift and then asks for it back. The thing is do you love what's in your hand more than you love God? Honestly, think about it. If the Lord took the most precious thing from your hand today, could you stand and say, He's faithful, He's good? I am crushed, I am broken, but He is good. See, there was a time in Alan and I's life when we had a miscarriage, and I know Alan has spoke about it, and I've mentioned it. It was between Hunter and Sierra. We weren't ready to have a baby yet, but we found out we were pregnant, and we were so excited, and then I miscarried. And I've learned through walking that journey that sometimes when you walk with somebody on that journey, sometimes there's nothing that you can just say. You just sit there. Just sit there. Well, soon after I found out I was pregnant with Hunter, and we were so excited because we knew in our heart that Hunter was a gift from the Lord. That actually, had I had the baby that was miscarried, that I couldn't get pregnant with Hunter. And so we just knew God had a plan for that baby in heaven, but Hunter was meant to be here. And as Hunter grew inside of me, I could feel him, but I could just sense that something was off with my man. And I'd be like, hey, the baby. And he'd be like, I know. And eventually Alan and I sat down and spoke one time, and Alan goes, you know, I just can't get attached yet. And I go, I get it. He goes, you know, I can't get attached yet. Shortly after that, we had Hunter. And on the day that we had Hunter, it was a beautiful day, but so many things wrong happened. When Hunter was born, he wasn't breathing, and it was pretty immediate. And I didn't know a whole lot because I was really drugged out of my mind because we both were losing blood pressure, and it was really sad. I was gonna die along with Hunter. And when Hunter was born, he was not born gray, he was born black. And I didn't know what was going on, so I kind of sat up, and they had to push me down, and I go, where's my baby? Alan remembers it this way. He said, I looked at my son, and my son was completely black. And he said, all I heard were doctors say, get him breathing, ladies, get him breathing. And he goes, and I just kind of turned my back on Hunter and went, God, I just want my wife to live. Please, I just want her to live. Well, through all of that, Hunter came through, but Hunter got pneumonia, and so he had to be in NICU for 10 days. A 9-pound baby in NICU. It's pretty funny. Especially next to 16-ounce babies. And they are beautiful. And we brought him home, and we had him on serious medication. And one morning, I'll never forget, I woke and he was screaming his head off, but it wasn't one of those screams like, I don't feel good, or I'm hungry, or I need to be changed. His whole body was shaking. And in an instant, in a moment, I could smell what the medication had done to him. His body was manifesting that he was not well. And fear hit me. It struck me like a sword. See, I thought I was over it when he was born. I thought, God, you're so faithful. You're so good. The miscarriage is gone and you make all things new. But right in that living room, it struck me, I'm losing Hunter. And the Lord, His Holy Spirit came to me. He said, call the doctor right now. It was like the Lord just kind of came next to me and sat next to me and said, am I not the God of what I put in your hands? I gave you that baby. Heather, give him to me. See, we hadn't even dedicated Hunter yet. And the Lord was asking me, give him to me, Heather. We called the doctor, and the doctor said, you know what? It's just the medication. We're going to stop the medication, and he will be fine. And in that moment, it was like the Lord just said, I'm testing you. See, I put that gift in your hands. God knows that the things that lie in our hands, like our children, like our job, like our career, like our ministries, those are precious to us. But we have to understand that in our minds, we cannot say, God, if you took this one or this one or this one, it's over. Would you do that? You trust God to give you that gift. He's good in the giving and the taking because He's still faithful. He's still faithful. So what is in your hands in closing? What is in your hands? What do you struggle with? And right now there are things that are coming to your mind and your heart. Do you go, God, okay, what I have right now is so insignificant, I don't even want to look at it. How about if I just lay it over here? What had happened if Moses had taken the staff and went, I'm just going to set it on the ground over there? God used the staff to show Pharaoh that he was God. Maybe you're looking at God and you say, God, it's not enough. I don't have enough. What you're calling me to, it doesn't look right on the books. Maybe He's calling you away from something. And you go, God, if I walk away from that, then I really won't have enough. I'm going to tell you, you have two choices. You either choose to trust God in the moment, or you turn from God in the moment. What, Heather? Obedience is better than sacrifice. I could come to church 52 weeks of the year, but if God is asking me to do something, if God is asking me to hand Him something, and I don't, He cannot bless my life. He cannot use my life. And some of the war and the junk we walk through, you're not to forget it, because God doesn't waste anything. He uses everything to His glory. See, I can tell you those stories because on the other side, I know today if He were to take Alan or the children and I were still breathing, there's purpose. There's purpose in my pain. And I will not hate a living God who gave me everything, because at some point He's going to go, can you give it to me? This pain you have in your heart, can you give it to me? This person, maybe you don't have the answers to that question. Can you just give it to me? Because on the other side of that is promise and potential. You want to be used by God? Choose to trust Him. Choose to trust Him.
We hope you were blessed by this week's message. We would love to remember you in prayer, so just go to our website at crosswalkcc.com and fill out the prayer request form. We will make sure that we get it to our staff to pray specifically for you. Also, you can go to our website to see information on our services, Sundays at 9 a.m. or 10:45 a.m., or Wednesday night for the family at 6:30 p.m. We would love to see you, and we hope you have a great week.